In this video, we're going to show you how to install the radiator on your Ford 500, located right in the front of your vehicle. Before tackling this job, you want to go ahead and bring the vehicle down to your local service station and have the AC system professionally evacuated. Now with your hood open, you're going to locate this upper cover or fill panel, and there's going to be these plastic locking tabs here. There's one here, there's one right here, and there's two more on the driver's side over here and up here. Let's go ahead and use our Phillips head screwdriver and trim tool remover to go ahead and pull these out. Pop those out and repeat that process for the other three. Go ahead and set those four aside. We'll loosen and remove our two 8mm bolts. Now that we have all of our hardware removed, we're going to grab this here and we're going to pull it forward. This is going to allow us to reach down on the back side here. There's going to be a series of 8mm bolts running across the bottom underneath. So we're going to use our 1/4-inch ratchet and socket. Get down underneath here. There's one of them here. I'm going to repeat this process across the bottom of the grill. And slide the grill off the top of the bumper. Locate your horns, disconnect the harness from the side, pinch the tab on the back side, wiggle the connector off. Right up between the horns, there is an 8mm bolt. Use your socket and extension. Unbolt it. Set it aside. On the driver's side here, we have our deflector. So we're going to use our trim tool. Pop this off. And there's two of these little plastic buttons here. There's one up top, one down below. Use your trim tool and pop those out. There's one more button down below. Now I just want to go ahead and tuck these back. We're going to repeat the same process for the passenger side. Using a 13mm socket, remove this nut. And repeat for the passenger side. On the lower passenger side part of the AC condenser, you're going to find the ports going into it, and there are two 13mm nuts. I want to go ahead and remove those there. I'm going to use a swivel and extension to get into it. And when we do remove those there and wiggle this free, there might be a little bit of pressure in the system, so just be prepared for that. On the bottom side here, we're going to use our Phillips head screwdriver to remove the core of the plastic retainer. And then use your trim tool to pop out the rest of it. We're going to repeat for the other two. So now that we have the plastic pins out, this will drop away. Now before we loosen the drain here on our cooling system, we want to have a catch can or a bucket underneath to catch the coolant that is going to come out. This is a 19 millimeter. Now with the drain opened up, we're going to wait till our cooling system is completely drained out, and then we'll continue from there. At this point here, we'll go ahead and screw in the drain. You just want to do that by hand, just snug that down. You don't have to use any special tools at this point here because it's pretty much drained out for the most part. I'm just going to give that a quick wipe. On the passenger side lower portion of the radiator, you're going to find your lower hose. Use your pliers on the hose clamp. And we want to work that clamp back. And we also have our catch can underneath. Even though we drain the radiator, chances are there's going to be a little bit of residual left in there. So go ahead and start working that lower hose off. Always good to have eye protection on something like this. Let that finish draining. Once this is done draining, we'll head back up top and continue up there. Go ahead and just position these components here. And we're going to pull upward on the AC condenser. Here we go. Pull this up through the front. Now when we're lifting up on this, we're dislodging this little bracket here, and there's one on the other side. So when we install the new component, we want to make sure that those slide into the brackets on the radiator. On the front side here, we have this cooler that is held onto our radiator by these two clips. There's one on the top here, one on the bottom. And the top one, we're going to pull out gently and lift up. We're going to do the same on the driver's side. Now, while grabbing the cooler, we're going to kind of wiggle that and use our bar. And we want to separate these lines from the radiator from these plastic clips. Do the same on the bottom here. Now that we've dislodged the upper tube here and the upper portion of the cooler, I'm just going to continue to wiggle this around gently and free up the other tube. On the driver's side upper portion of that radiator, I'm going to remove the 8mm bolt here. Remove that clamp. I'm going to do the same for the passenger side. Using our trim tool, I'm going to release the retainer clip holding the O2 center in place. Remove the harness from this little retainer. Now we're going to separate this here, this little tab. We're going to press down on that and disconnect the sensor. Tuck that wire off to the side. and you can just let that wire drop down. We have our radiator hose running horizontal right here behind the fan. You use our trim tool. We're going to release the little retainer clamps here. And we have the fan connector right here, and use our trim tool. Pop that out. And on the top side, there is a little clip right here. We're going to press that down and disconnect the connector for the fans. Separate that harness. On the passenger side of our cooling fan, there's an 8mm bolt right here. Going to use our socket and 1/4-inch ratchet to get in there and loosen and remove that. And once you have this one out, we're going to remove the one on the driver's side, same location. On the driver's side, the 8mm bolt is underneath the upper radiator hose. So if you locate that hose, go straight down. We're using our deep 8mm socket on this one here for clearance purposes. And we're going to lift up on the fans. It's going to take a little bit of persuasion here to get this up and out. Just pushing hoses around. And pull that up and out and set it aside. Disconnect your mass airflow sensor. On one side, on the bottom side, there's going to be a red locking clip. Lift that up, push in on the little lock tab underneath, and wiggle that connector off. On the airbox itself, undo the cap. Using a flathead screwdriver, we're going to loosen the air intake tube clamp. Separate this unit, pull that out. Using an 8mm socket and ratchet, remove the bolt holding the airbox base in place. I'm going to dislodge the 2 posts here from the 2 rubber grommets on the bottom. Now we can gain access to the clamp right here on the bottom side of our upper radiator hose. Use a pair of pliers. We're going to compress that hose clamp, wiggle that back, and work that hose off of the radiator. On the front here, if you have this cooler equipped on your vehicle, we want to go ahead and disconnect this. Now we have a mat here to protect the fluid from getting onto our paint. Use your pliers to move this hose clamp back. We're also going to use our hose clips here. That'll pinch that. That should keep the fluid from coming out excessively. And we're going to separate this. And just use a tie strap to hold us up out of the way. Now this cooler right here has 2 aluminum tubes that runs beside the radiator and into the engine compartment. Now the hoses run through here and come across to a bracket on the side of the transmission. That bracket is held on with a 8mm bolt. We're going to reach on down here. We're going to remove that bolt, and that's going to allow us to pull that cooler further forward and allow us more room to get the radiator out. Remove that bolt. We have all that flexibility on that hose right there. So if you push on that, we'll work the cooler further forward. Now with that cooler pulled further forward, we'll try and tilt our radiator back. I'm going to gently wiggle this up and out. Now you want to lay out your two radiators, and we're going to swap over the metal clips and our rubber bushings. So pretty much go through your whole unit, swap over from old to the new. Use a pocket screwdriver here to get underneath and pop off our clip. Line that up, snap that on, swap over our rubber insulator, and repeat for the other side. On the side right here, we have our cooler lines, or the cooler line bracket. 8mm socket, we'll remove the bolt holding that. Have to pop the clip off of that as well. Once you get your clip off, swap it over to the other one. Install the bracket. And just gently snug that down. It doesn't have to be super tight. And don't forget to repeat for the other side. Pop that off. Before installing your radiator into the front end here, you want to make sure that on the bottom side you have these rubber grommets. There should be one here and one on the driver's side. If they're not there, you need to check the bottom side of the radiator that you just removed. Either way, make sure that you have the rubber grommets installed back in the vehicle before you drop in your new radiator. On the bottom side of the radiator, you have these plastic posts that fit into the rubber bushings. So let's go ahead and do so. Drop this down inside. While you're doing this, you'll have to grab that other cooler, manipulate that out of the way a little bit, and slide that radiator down. Make sure the pins are in both bushings. All right, radiator is in. Let's go ahead and install our two braces on the driver and passenger side. Install your brackets. I'm going to get the bolt started here, and then we'll repeat for the passenger side, and we'll come back and snug them both down. Once that bottoms out, you're good. Don't want to make it super tight, just snug it down. Now let's go ahead and install our cooler. I'm going to get our aluminum tubes into the plastic bracket here and install our two tabs here into the radiator. Get those tabs lined up and push it down. Install the bolt for the bracket. Go ahead and line up that bolt. Gonna get started a few threads. Then we'll tighten it down. I'm going to reinstall our cooler here. Press it on. Now that we have the hose in position, go ahead and put the clamp back in or on. Now when installing a new AC condenser, you want to make sure that these two studs are threaded in if they are not already. This is where the AC ports attach on the passenger side. Let's go ahead and line up our unit here. We're going to gently guide that down and into position. Now once you have the AC condenser in and in the lower clips, you'll know it because the condenser won't drop down anymore. The holes here will line up. Let's go ahead and install the two studs. Get the driver's side started and repeat for the passenger side. With those started, let's go ahead and snug them down. And once those bottom out, that's as far as you need to go. You don't want to over tighten it and crack the plastic on the radiator. And on our AC lines, there's going to be a rubber O-ring here. You want to inspect that, making sure it's in good condition. If it's nicked, torn, anything like that, you need to replace it now. Ours are in good shape. Press that onto the stud. And then install a nut. I'm going to snug that down. Just bottom that out. Inspect this one here as well. Ours is in good shape. So we're going to line this up. Press that in and just repeat. Install that nut and snug it down. Grab the lower radiator hose, pop that onto the radiator. And I'm just going to move our hose clamp back into position. Make sure that your drain plug is closed. And then we'll install our buttons across the bottom here to keep the shield up. Line this up and install one of our clips. I'm going to repeat this right across. And we'll get the third one in here. Install the upper radiator hose. Go ahead and open up that hose clamp. Install the lower portion of your air box here. Now these pins here go into rubber grommets in that metal tray. And if you apply a little bit of spray lube on there, go ahead and line this up. And it'll help those plastic pins pop right in. And we'll tighten that down. Snug that down. Install the air filter. And install the lid. Install the 3 plastic tabs into the base first. Install the tube. Then we could bring this over and install our clamps. Install the mass airflow sensor harness. Pressing that red lock on the bottom side of it. Let's go ahead and lower our cooling fan down. right, now once we get it down and horizontal, we now want to drop the lower portion of the fan into the retaining clips on the radiator. Okay, the fan is now rested in a position. Let's install our 2 bolts. On the passenger side, just push down the hose and go ahead and get that passenger side fan bolt installed. Now, we just want to get this started in there a bit. We're not going to tighten this down until we get the driver's side bolt in. Let's go ahead and do that now. All right, now that we have them both started, let's go ahead and snug them both down. And once that bolt snugs down, go ahead and repeat for the passenger side. Just snug that down. Doesn't have to be super tight. Press the clips in for your radiator hose. Now, connect your O2 sensor. Press that together, you can hear it click. We're going to bring our harness up on top like so. I'm going to push this onto that stud. Bring our deflector up. Push this on like so. And then just tuck in the deflector down on the sides. Going to install the driver's side here. Line this up. Push that into place. Just tuck in the deflector over here on the side. Install your horn assembly. Take the bolt and put it through. I'm going to take my socket and extension and line that up and get that bolt started. Snug it down nice and tight. Take the horn connector, line that up, press it on. We're going to start by opening up our expansion tank and set that cap aside. Right here on the top of our upper radiator hose, there is a little valve right here, and it's held in with a metal clip. I'm going to use our needle nose pliers, pop that off. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add the appropriate amount of coolant to this here until it comes up to the top of the fill tube. Then we'll go ahead and reinstall our plug. At that point, we'll go over to the expansion tank and we're going to fill up our expansion tank to the full mark. Put the cap on. We're going to start up the car, let it run for about 10 minutes or so. We're going to come back and we're going to top off the system by inspecting here and making sure that the expansion tank is at the full level. Now that we're filled up, I'm going to pop our cap back on there. I'm going to install a retainer clip. You can put this on either way. It just snaps into place through these little grooves on the side. And it's now locked into place. Come on over to our expansion tank and let's fill this up to the full mark. Now on our expansion tank here, we have this seam through the middle. Just below that seam has a cold mark. So what we do is add the appropriate antifreeze to this tank and get it into that cold mark. Once we have it to that mark there, we can go ahead and install our cap. Let's go ahead and start up the vehicle, cycle that through, let the heat run, purge out any air bubbles, and then we're going to come back here and double check and make sure that we're in the appropriate fill level on our expansion tank. Now installing the grill assembly here, I want to go ahead and make sure that the bumper clips here line up with the bottom portion of the grill across the whole bottom. While you're doing this, make sure that the upper brackets fit on top of the radiator support. And simply pushing this in and locking it into place. With the grill in place, take all of your bolts, get those started through the bottom side. I want to get all these started by hand, and then we'll come back and we'll snug them down. Now that they have this one started, we're going to repeat for the others. Use your ratchet, and we want to snug all these down. Now once that bolt bottoms out, you want to just go ahead and give it just a hair bit more. You don't want to over tighten these here. You can break the clip or the plastic. All right, the bolt has bottomed out. Just a little bit more. And it's snug. Go ahead and repeat for the others. And install our upper fill panel here. You want to place these tabs on the back side of the grill assembly. So I'm just going to lower this down. The grill has a good amount of flexibility here, so just line this up. Now that we have that pressed in, get that lined up. Now on the driver's side here, we're going to go ahead and install our plastic push pins. Get that one lined up there, and then get the forward one here. Get that lined up, and then get our bolt lined up here, get that started. Once you have these three in here, go ahead and repeat for the passenger side. I'm going to tighten these down. And once those are bottomed out, tighten down this bolt. Once that bolt bottoms out, just give it a little bit more. And go ahead and repeat for the passenger side. Now at this point here, now that we have all the major components installed, bring the vehicle down to your local repair shop. That way there they can go ahead and fill up that AC system and get that all charged up for you.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.